Yo, what's going on, everybody? Man, it's your boy Rick, man. I'm back at it again, man. LIB Media. I'm here with another video, and I just wanted to talk about a general thing real quick that was kind of on my mind. So, first and foremost, happy 4th of July to everybody who's out there. I'm up early on this 4th of July morning. Got to get some stuff done, so thought I'd drop a video real quick. So it's been a whole lot of talk about the salary cap and the NBA second apron. Um, I kind of want to give my thoughts on it because I think this is ultimately a good thing for the league as a whole. Um, and so I'm gonna kind of start here, right? So for those that don't know, right, the NBA second apron, pretty much, long story short, is um like a second tax that a team would get, right? If they go over a certain amount of spending amount, right? Because the second apron exists because there's no hard cap necessarily in the NBA, so they have the aprons, right? And so they kind of split it up into two, and I'll kind of go into more detail, right? So the first apron, right, you already hit a certain tax, and then you have teams can only acquire, sign, or trade players if they move below the apron. Teams execute trade, the salaries much match within 110%. Now going to blah. Teams cannot sign players waived during the regular season, blah, blah, blah. The second apron, right, adds a whole new separate set of rules, right? Teams do not have access to the taxpayer mid-level exception, which is super important. Teams cannot use trade exceptions created when combining the salaries of multiple players. Teams cannot use trade exceptions from any prior year. Teams lose the ability to trade first-round picks that are 7 years in the future. If teams remain in the second apron for 3 years in a 5-year period, their upcoming first-round draft pick is automatically moved to the end of the first round. So now, not only is it a financial obligation there, they also have these rules, and these rules also help show something, right? Because you have, like, Boston is a great example, right? Boston already immediately made trades in the offseason. They had to get up off of Drew and Kristaps Porzingis because of the amount of money they were making, and they thought about keeping the team together at first until the Tatum injury, but because of how the second apron works, the teams are more willing to get up off of players earlier rather than just signing them and sitting in the luxury tax. What this now does for the league is and I want to say this, it's not bad for the players themselves because the players are going to go ahead and sign. We've seen sign and trades. We've seen people like Dorian Finney-Smith just got a real big contract in free agency. So the money is still circulating around the league. So the players themselves will be fine ultimately. But I think as a overall standpoint for the league, you're going to see a lot of teams start to get up off of players a little bit earlier and not just say, hey, we have a big two, a big three, or whatever. We already seen it to start to take effect, obviously, in the finals. I wouldn't say it started to take effect yet, but in the finals, we've seen a lot of these teams, the Pacers and OKC, they had these very deep rosters, right? They can play 9, 10, rather than 6 or 7, 7 to 8, which is kind of historically how the NBA has been played, right? You have your 5 starters, you have 2 or 3 bench players that contribute. Everybody else is really a no-show in the playoffs. But now with the second apron, it's going to make more teams say, hey, we're not going to try to get 2 or 3 stars because you automatically end up in the second apron. What we're going to do is we're going to get 1 star, maybe 2, and then we're going to add players and build around those and pay the players that actually are going to help win the games for whatever specific talents that they bring to the team. And I think as an overall for the league, that is good, which is why we've seen a different champion. The last 7 NBA seasons has been a different champion. Now you add on this new CBA rule. It's going to continue to lead to, it's not going to be much like, let's just say OKC for the sake of a conversation, let's just say OKC, they go back and they win again, and maybe they might win the third time due to how young their roster is. Then at that point, you have no choice but to sign certain players, because once you sign Jay Williams, and then once you sign Chet, right? You sign those two players right there, you already are pretty much close to the second apron mark, depending on what kind of contracts you sign them to, right? And so then you automatically didn't have to split the team up to create parity again in the NBA, right? And so the concept of a dynasty is now going to be more I don't want to say more homegrown built, because a lot of dynasties in the past were definitely homegrown built, but I mean like it's gonna be a lot of more in the current NBA building through the draft, more like how Boston did it, right? With Tatum and Brown, they drafted those players, right? OKC did trade for Shea, but they traded for him before he was Shea. So, everybody else on that roster, homegrown, they all got drafted, and that's going to be more of the dynamic going forward. And then you're going to see more things that are straightforward in the league. Like a perfect example is Damian Lillard. He got waived by the Bucks. They signed Miles Turner, but they waived him, even though he was coming off the injury. And it's not only because of the injury, but because of his age and all of those other things. They ended up waiving him, and then they are going to pay out the rest of his salary in like increments over the years. And we've seen this example with Kevin Durant. When he got injured in Golden State, he got signed to Brooklyn and didn't even play for a season. But they were willing to eat the contract for when he did get back. You're not going to see that really happening no more, because you're going to have to be on the floor, because if I'm contributing this large sum of money to you and it's going to put me in the second apron, I can't just have you not playing, right? Because then it's a loss, it's a lose-lose for like everybody involved. So I think overall the second apron is a real good thing as far as the league goes, because it'll help the league continue to grow to a place where we see more stars and more players become all-stars, because now they're not just going to sit on a team with two other really good players. They're going to end up moving on due to the second apron, and then they'll get to shine and be a key contributor on if they do win a championship, and also just get to shine from the standpoint of like, you're now the second option, and you'll have players who were bench players who are now third options because of how you have to split that up. And it's going to definitely help the small market teams where they don't land a bunch of free agents. Well, if you got a situation where you have, to use OKC again, Chet turns into a star, well, now OKC has to make a decision. Okay, well, you know what? We're going to have to let Jalen Williams walk because we got Chet and we got Shea, and that's what we want to build around. Let's just say, hypothetically, if they want to do that, then what will happen is, then once they let Jalen Williams walk, he's going to go sign to a team that has the cap space to sign him, which could be, I don't know, let's just say the Utah Jazz for the sake of the conversation, right? Like they have the cap space to sign him, right? So now they sign him. He goes and he probably becomes the number one option there. They draft another player, right? And then they have a 1-2 because of what? They drafted Ace Bailey, yeah, right? So you have a 1-2 punch there, right? In Utah, which now makes them a team that can really kind of like do something. Like, let's just say that happens like, 3 years down the road. So I just think the CBA can be good for the league. Now, those who grew up in a certain period of time and are used to dynasties, I tell you like this, I think every sports, every single sport, no matter what sport it is, they're trying to avoid dynasties. You can even see it in single people sports, right? When you look at like something like boxing, for an example, right? In boxing, you had all these people with all these undefeated records. Well, Turkey, Al Sheikh, they bring him in, and then now you bring in Dana White, and now they're making people fight. If you're undefeated, I'm undefeated, you need to fight, right? And so it's the same concept as, like, you got a dynasty or whatever. The thing is that they're trying to avoid that, and they're trying to say, nah, like, we want sports to be what it is. We want the excitement to be there. We don't want a Golden State team with Kevin Durant where they're going to win. And so at the beginning of the season, unless you're a fan of those players, or you're a fan of the team, or, you know what I mean, if you're not one of those, then your interest level goes down, because you're like, well, we kind of already know what's going on. But with this second apron, you're going to see a lot more movement, and you're going to see teams have a chance, and you're going to see a lot of young players moving around, because they're going to want the money that they deserve, and the teams aren't going to be able to just give it to them just because. So I think ultimately this will be a good thing for the league as a totality. I want to know y'all opinion on it. Did y'all even hear about the second apron? Do y'all know what it is? What's your favorite team? How do you think the apron is going to affect them, going forward? So it's just a whole lot of questions out there circling around this thing, but I'm super interested to see how this thing play out, man, in the next couple of years. So y'all just let me know, man. It's your boy Rick, man. This has been LIB Media, man. Y'all like, comment, subscribe, and holler at your boy, man. Y'all have a good day. Peace.